Hello, welcome to this carrier update brought to you by PowerFleet. I'm here with Tony Mulvey. Tony, what are we starting off with?
So we've got our outbound tender volume index chart. So kind of looking at volume levels over the past 3 years really. So we've got 2022 and 2021 here in the blue line, 2020, 2021 line here in orange, and then 2020, 2019 in green. What we see, spike last year, obviously Texas freeze had a lot to do with that winter weather, spiked volume, spiked rejections, right? So when you think about OTVI, it includes both accepted and rejected tenders, right? So this number may not be a true indicator of what, I mean, it tells you what volume's doing, but when you have sudden spikes in rejections, it throws this number up. Because obviously more rejected loads that go in, right, it causes those volumes to increase. So over the past week, I mean, volumes kind of reverse course. I mean, we talked about it, I guess, last Friday. Volumes were down about 4%. Now they're up about 4%. So they've kind of given this give and take over, and it's really been since the beginning of the year. You look, I mean, we have spikes and then they fall off, and then it spikes again, it falls off. So, but ultimately, they're kind of trending in this sideways. Since the beginning of the year, it's been pretty sideways. I mean, look at where we are relative to where we were beginning of December.
Yeah.
About the same. I mean, and it's March, right? So, I mean, you look at February here, typically a pretty slow month for freight. Anything but the case. I mean, we were up year over year throughout February until we ran up against the difficult comps. We'll bring up the next chart here. It'll be our outbound tender reject index, and you can see that spike, right? It's very similar to the spike we saw in volumes. Well, now they're kind of trending flat, even a little down. I mean, they're 18.5%. I mean, it's still remarkably high from where we were, say, in 2020 when we were at 5%. And what you see, we're coming up to when the COVID crisis happened, right? That panic buying, that surge in freight demand that coincided with the surge in tender rejection. So where those go, I mean, this number is going to come up against difficult comps. It already is for a year ago. I mean, look, we've been trending down for most of the year, right? So where this is headed, I don't really know. I think what's interesting, though, is you've heard Landstar, when they released their 8K because of having to shut the operations in Ukraine, right? They mentioned load volumes are up 20% year over year. Revenues are up 20+% year over year. So a lot of that revenue, right, contract freight, we've seen those increases, and that's what's driving a lot of this decline in rejection rates. There is obviously capacity being added back, and I know Alan's going to talk on those truck orders and that backlog, which obviously that's one factor of capacity. But I mean, when contract rates have increased 25%, I mean, obviously you're going to have a decline in rejection rates. So
that makes sense.
They're finally starting to catch up, and what it's doing, I mean, you're seeing some of those impacts on the spot market, right? I don't say less spot market activity, but spot rates are off their highs, right? So, I mean, we had a national spot rate peaked right here in that first week of January and has since come down right there with rejection rates.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point, especially when you look at those volumes and those comparisons, really, especially the seasonality. Typically in February, we see a little bit of a drop off and it just kind of cools, and you know, we can take it a little bit easy, so to speak, but we haven't seen any of that. And so now moving into some of the warmer months, it's like there has been no significant break for volumes kind of coming in or moving throughout the country.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you look at accepted volumes, right? If we're taking OTVI and adjusting it by this rejection, it's up 6% year over year, which, I mean, when you think about it, that's pretty significant considering where we were last year.
Right.
I mean, the one thing that I've heard a lot is people talk about that it's not been volatile, right? The market has reacted it's hard to say normal because, I mean, we're at 18.5%, right? But we've been there for a year. So people kind of know what to expect. I think that's the takeaway. It's like conditions haven't changed significantly one way or another, so people can react to it well, right? So
yeah,
I think that's going to be one interesting thing to watch as we warm up, as that freight comes in. I mean, you look at Port of Charleston, there's still 20 plus ships waiting off there. So, I mean, there's still a lot of freight coming. I mean, look at IOTI, it's spiked back up to like December levels. I mean, there's still, obviously freight demand is still relatively strong, right? So, and it doesn't seem like that's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon, especially as we kind of get into, like I said, these warmer months and so much activity still waiting on both sides of the country, Port of Charleston, LA, of course. So, Tony, thank you so much for this first update. We'll check in with you again in just a few moments. So right now, we're going to toss it back over to Kaylee Nix.